I guess part of the appeal to me of making games is that you just kind of get to do all these little things kind of by themselves. You know, you're always just like heaping things up. Like I'll just have a day where like, okay, this is the writing day. This is the daydreaming day. This is the draw with little guys day. This is like the wallpaper day. And it'll just be kind of like a fun challenge to just be like, you know.
Are you like a pen and paper person? Do you write the story start to finish? Do you start working in world with environments? Like where does a chapter kind of like start for you for this game?
And I usually just kind of listen to music and daydream for a while, and I just kind of like have like, you know, I have jokes, I have like little bits of maybe dialogue or like a main like a kind of a theme that seems like it'd be kind of funny if it was like just written on a blurb on like a Wikipedia page or something like that. Like, you know, like episode 12, BB lays an egg. And you just say, okay, what happens in an episode where BB lays an egg? You know, it's the idea of like, oh, you have this like really kind of dumb premise and you just kind of try and have to like figure out how it works somehow.
Yeah.
And then I'd kind of be like, oh, well, you know, if I was to take it seriously, eventually I'd kind of be like, these are the first like maybe 5 levels. And I'd write down the dialogue for them just in like notepads. And then kind of, as I'm walking in the level in Unity, it used to be Unity. And then I'd dump them into the game. I'd see how I'd test it out, see how it looked on screen. And then I'd rewrite it like based on how it looked in stream, like in Unity itself. Cause like, I feel like to me, the most underrated part of video game, like writing itself is just it's just the return key and stuff like that. You know, it's just like the question, like how visually it looks, like where do you put in the line break? Like, how do you make it like 3-line text box instead of 4-line text box? Like, I don't know. I feel like that's like why a lot of old computer games still feel like they have like quite powerful writing to me. That I feel like maybe gets lost now that everything is just like, you know, text is kind of like an infinite resource. Right? Like
I see.
Yeah.
So you're deliberately making some constraints there, or you're thinking about the constraints there, and that helps shape the nature of the writing or how something might read on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I have my taste, and part of it is just like a sense of like, it just doesn't feel like it works, right? I feel like if I'm playing through the level, I'm just like, oh, this text box is 4 lines instead of 3 lines, so kind of like you slow down a little bit to read it more. You kind of like, it becomes a little more like dense as a visual presence on the screen itself, because like it's kind of sharing the screen space with all these other like visual things, and you kind of like, oh, you want it to be like, you know, maybe short enough that it kind of looks inviting and not like overpowering out the rest of the elements, and then like have like enough like weird little details that like, you know, you skim it and it kind of makes sense, and then you kind of get to the end and there's tons, it has some like a little twist, or like an odd like, you know, some kind of odd movement which makes you go like, oh, I thought I understood what the text box is saying, but it turns out I maybe didn't understand what it's saying. I feel like that's kind of the ideal I'm going for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, because I often think with games where I read text, I mean, I guess part of what's interesting, you know, for early video games, that was just a function of like you didn't have voiceover, right? Like just there was not a possibility for, you know, early text games. That is a possibility now, and some of it obviously is like budget related. But it is interesting to think about, like I often find that like when I'm reading text on screen for games, I'm like, oh, is this the thing that like given sufficient resources it would have been voiced over? But you're kind of saying something totally different, which is that this is like in a lot of ways the game has to be experienced with these like these specific constraints around text. Is that right? Am I hearing you right?
I think it's kind of similar, actually. I feel like with old games, like, yeah, it could be the case that the older games are kind of that they like to achieve some like kind of a naturalistic effect of writing, right? Like you go into the RPG village and the bartender says like, you know, welcome stranger, don't see a lot of people like you before, you know, here's our wares, we don't have many due to the war and so on. But they only had 3 lines of text to work with, and those 3 lines of text were written by like a 20-year-old like computer nerd somewhere in Japan who then had to like send it to a localization team in the US, who then had to translate it in a way that fits the original 3-line text box in a totally different language, and the result that comes out is just some like, you know, what do you want, and then there's kind of a question mark and then the shop, like it kind of uses a lot of like any like real people effect, right? But it kind of gains like a lot of like, it's kind of like similar to the Irish literature thing. Like there's a lot of effects you can kind of go for if you're not like particularly concerned, like, oh, this is realistic, this is how people actually talk.
I see.
The flatness and kind of the uncanniness of this like, you know, slightly jumbled or offbeat text can kind of be a lot more potent, I feel.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.